Bomana genti ayekenu na ozono bosse wuru chinketa aisionu kan konye chiri ya zelu digoside ayabapunu ya oso weteruni abuya jimakia webeni iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nketa na Eastern News 24 ebe isi wena weteruni ya bụ ozi gbasata maka ya bụ ihe na-eme n'obodo nọ n'ime ya ụbọchị nketa unu n'anya n'iru akwụkwọ gị gara aga o were ihe mee n'iru akwụkwọ gbasata maka update lawyers Nnamdi Kanu nyere gbasata maka Maazị Nnamdi Kanu ka ya bụ ife si aga na DSS custody ana ka ya bụ Nigerian government sa zuo okwofa n'ebe Maazị Nnamdi Kanu nọ anụ ngekwe ntị o were ife Nnamdi Kanu kwuru through the lawyers ewetago na obere Nigeria ọbụla student law student ọbụla gafe aya akwụkwọ ọ na-ewoge ebe mere such a thing that na court nyecha ikpe discharge ya and acquit the matter a continue kwe gawakwa na court again si na ogo obe mere city ya akwụ na oge nye ya 1 million up to na obere ya ifo ndị gọvanọ anyị agba kpụrụ that they will release Maazị Nnamdi Kanu unconditional. They are going to meet Tinubu up to now. Otu abụghị ezi ewere ya na-eme politics chetakwa na akwa ndị Igbo ka eji akwanụ ndị Igbo ka eji na DSS custody onye ejikwe bụ ndị Igbo ege ntị n'ihe nwanne anyị nwoke were ikwu n'iru akwụkwọ gbasata maka ya bụ ihe dịka ihe ga ya bụ ife drop ọra ife iche n'ụdị nke gị gbasata maka ihe ndị a niile oje gị kọwara anyị n'iru akwụkwọ. It's a powerful discussion on Maazị Nnamdi Kanu's matter, so listen to it and leave us with your own comment. All right, over to you, sir.
301 days ago, the leader of the IPOB, the indigenous people of Biafra, Maazị Nnamdi Kanu, was kidnapped under a false pretense in Kenya. And what does that mean? Nigeria's murderous regime under Bukwari presented a false intel to the secret police of Kenya that Nnamdi Kanu, if found in their country, was there to meet with the terrorist group in the country, and therefore he is a wanted man in Nigeria. Having heard that, the Kenyan secret police then targeted Nnamdi Kanu, who was at the airport, by the way, after arriving in the country 3 days earlier, when he didn't sneak into their country. When Nnamdi Kanu arrived in Kenya, right, he checked himself in at some point to one of their hospitals for a checkup when he wasn't feeling well. Then 3 days after, he was at the airport to pick up a friend that was also arriving in Kenya on that unfaithful day, when the supposed secret police of Kenya swooped on him under the pretense that they received an intel that Nnamdi Kanu was in Kenya to meet with Al-Shabaab terrorist group in Kenya. Meanwhile, he wasn't there to meet with any terrorist group at all. Well, they found out, 7 days later, having been tortured, where Nnamdi Kanu was taken to an underground cell, where he was also chained down and was being tortured for days until they came out to say, well, the intel was wrong. At that point, Nnamdi Kanu told his captor, the Kenya secret police, let me go. Now that you realize that I am not in your country to meet with any terror group or what have you. That was when he was told, sorry, we can't do that. There is some higher level of authority more interested in you. In fact, Nigeria has made them an offer. That offer is irresistible offer. In this regard, we don't have anything against you. We don't have anything against you, man. But we just have to hand you over to a team of Nigerians who are already waiting at the airport to take you to Nigeria. That was the beginning of the Nnamdi Kanu's illegal rendition to Nigeria. 1,301 days ago. I even did the calculation. Give me a sec. 1,301 days ago, 112 406,400 seconds ago. 1,873,440 minutes ago. 31,224 hours ago. In a nutshell, 1,301 days ago. Malamu, that provided the fake intel on Nnamdi Kanu to the Interpol as well as the Kenyan police. When Nnamdi Kanu got drugged and bundled down to Nigeria, it was paraded as a trophy. It was like a celebratory day for them in northern Nigeria, that their media, their political class, their impoverished people, they went all up in joy that the man that has been preaching for the peaceful breakup of that contraption has finally been captured, as if Nnamdi Kanu was the genesis, the beginning and the end of their misery, their poverty, their insecurity in northern Nigeria. It was like a great day for them that Malamun, the Attorney General of Nigeria at the time, had to give a press conference in Hausa to say, yes, we got him under a false pretense. Now, it was time for them to now take Nnamdi Kanu to their court. They took him to their court, by the way, and then to obtain what they called detention order. So when it was time for them to actually present the evidence of why Nnamdi Kanu is a terrorist, they started what is called stalling. They started stalling by using the same corrupt judiciary to continue to hold him without presenting evidence. At some point, they said, oh, we will need to present our witnesses in camera. Give me a sec. In camera simply means that those who are going to say Nnamdi Kanu as, sort of recruited them as terrorists in Nigeria, they will not be seen. They will be testifying behind the curtain. His own legal team rejected that. Cut the long story short, Nnamdi Kanu defeated them in their own court, the appeal court, on the 14th of October 2022, discharged and acquitted Nnamdi Kanu. See, the judges were like, the process of rendition Nnamdi Kanu to Nigeria was so wrong that Nigeria violated international treaties. Like Nigerian government acted like a rogue government, a rogue regime, that there were processes of extraditing anyone that is wanted for any crime whatsoever in any part of the world. There is a process. Nigeria didn't follow that. Nigeria did not present Nnamdi, or Kenya authority did not present Nnamdi Kanu before their own courts. The allegation against him was never argued in Kenya. It was a pure, it was a pure kidnapping, situation, which actually presented Nigeria as a pariah state, a lawless country, a rogue nation, where law and order doesn't really count. So their own court said that to them. Like, you have been looking for someone. You say, we have been looking for you. We have evidence that you are a terrorist, you are this, you are that, right? Then they came to your own court. In your own court, you were defeated. On the 14th of October 2022, the appeal court in Abuja ruled that Nnamdi Kanu cannot be tried in any court in Nigeria because the process of his extradition, which is the illegal rendition to Nigeria, was so wrong that any judge, any court that entertains the trial of Nnamdi Kanu is only making mockery of the judicial process in that contraption. So what happened? Malamu and his gang decided to say, they now filed what they call stay of execution. How can you file a stay of execution on the judgment of a court that says somebody is discharged, acquitted, and he must be returned back to Kenya? That's what their court says. The evidence is online. I'll probably show you some of it in this program. Return him to Kenya, then go through the normal process of extraditing him to Nigeria for whatever crime you think he is committed. But they won't do that. They relied more on their corrupt judiciary to do the dirty deals for them. Because Nnamdi Kanu was not kidnapped because he's done anything wrong. He He was kidnapped because number one, he's an Igbo man. Then number two, is demanding for something that they thought, like Gowon said back then, that, after killing millions of people needlessly, after betraying a gentleman agreement in Ghana, Aburi, right? After betraying all that agreement, returned back to Nigeria and then unleashed war on the people of Biafra at the time, killing millions of women, children, innocent people in a genocidal war. At the end of it, those who perpetrated that crime against humanity in Nigeria, they were never tried for crimes against humanity. Rather, Gowon said, no winner, no vanquish. No winner, no vanquish. So, and it was not to be talked about again, which means they believe that they've gotten away with it, forgetting the fact that the children of those who survived, they will one day come back to demand for the same thing that their parents bled for. And it was during the time of Bokwari, one of the criminals, genocidists of the Nigerian genocidal war, that was never tried for his own crime. Rather, he's been rewarded, repeatedly, like many others like himself. So to them, Nnamdi Kanu has sort of opened an old wound in a way that even some of us are questioning that today, that did they actually keep Biafra so that all of us can be facing this shege, this poverty, this terrorism, this backwardness, this economic strangulation, this unemployment, and the rest together? Is this the reason why they kept the Biafrans to remain as part of Nigeria when they did? Is this the reason why they have plotted the division between the old united Biafra to what you now have as a divided people of the old eastern region? So Nnamdi Kanu opened an old wound, an unforgivable move that the only thing they believe they could do is what? Is to get him buried. Unfortunately, they've not found a way of doing that, even in their own courts. So Malamu, after a year and a half of trying someone that you said you had evidence against, they had evidence. They were supposed to, okay, we have been looking for you. Okay, yeah, finally, you are. Oh, now you've kidnapped me. Here I am. Now present the evidence that I have done anything wrong. Present the evidence that I am a terrorist. But there is no evidence. Rather, they were using this media trial. Nnamdi Kanu this, Nnamdi Kanu that, to the point that they even ignited what they called the unknown gunmen, the politically sponsored terrorists of eastern part of Nigeria. In all of this, their court said, let him go. We can't try him here. The next thing, they filed what they called the stay of execution, hoping that the Supreme Court of Nigeria was going to help them in jailing him or possibly convicting him. If you want to convict someone for any crime, you have to start with presenting evidence. So Nnamdi Kanu and his own team said, I do not have any case to answer. I do not have any defense to put up because, number one, the judgment that said that I was illegally rendition back to this contraption stands. So what did their Supreme Court do? Their Supreme Court supposedly, who was supposed to be the final arbiter. When you go to Supreme Court, whatever the ruling of the Supreme Court is final. What happened? The same corrupt system now ruled that, Nnamdi Kanu's case should be sent back to the High Court, where he's already defeated these mofos. The Supreme Court agreed that Nnamdi Kanu's bail should never have been revoked. That somebody that was expected to return to court at a so date shouldn't have been targeted by the Nigerian army, who went there to slaughter and kill him. They actually killed over 32 people in his house that day. So the revocation of his bail was so wrong. That's what the Supreme Court said. And up till now, the Supreme Court has said his bail should be reinstated. It's been over a year now. Guess what? In the lawless contraption that Nigeria is, they still haven't reinstated his bail. And that tells you all you need to know. So to Nnamdi Kanu, from his own lawyers, said, I wouldn't mind to offer you ₦1 million if you are a law student who can actually please present a precedent. Precedent is like if this has ever happened before, that somebody was acquitted, discharged and acquitted, right, by the appeal court, and then the supposed prosecuting team out to file a stay of execution and say this judgment must not be implemented. Have you ever seen anything like that before? Of course not. Now, if you are a law student, maybe this is a chance for you to make a quick $1 million from his lawyers at their recent visits. Watch this.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen of the press, what I said and what my two colleagues have said can be summarized as follows. One, recall that Nnamdi Kanu's case was commenced almost over 9 years ago when he was first arrested in Lagos. Recall also that he was then charged with offenses relating to his broadcast on Radio Biafra from his location in London. You can imagine what it means for someone to be on an endless trial that never really happens for almost 10 years and being detained without conviction for 18 months, initially from 2015 to 2017, and again for over 3.5 years from 2021 to the present day. This alone is a gross injustice of its unique kind. Two, it's also to be recalled that after Nnamdi Kanu was freed on bail, Nigeria's army levied these lethal attacks against him that drove him into exile, involuntary exile, from which he was also renditioned in 2021. And recall the decision made in 2018 by the African Union that everything that has happened to the IPOB from 2017 to that very date, and of course, much worse happened after. Recall that those things were declared illegal and unlawful, and as having violated the African Charter at a continental scale. Now, also, the same action, in particular, the proscription of IPOB in 2017, provoked or triggered the rush of litigation that eventually culminated in the ruling of the High Court of Enugu State, declaring that such actions by the federal government of Nigeria against Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB are unconstitutional. So the question to ask is this: why is it that the IPOB, being of Igbo stock, it is not us as legal team making allegations? We have rulings of the international community. In the same vein, we have rulings of municipal courts in Nigeria indicating that what is happening to IPOB is nothing more than an ethnic-driven persecution. 3, now having survived the lethal attacks and having survived this many years in enforced exile, and having undergone all these tribulations and travails, and having been renditioned, these actions, this very action of the federal government of renditioning Nnamdi Kanu triggered the international legal order. In July 2022, the United Nations Human Rights Council came down with a gavel that Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinarily renditioned, and that it was a violation of all canons of international law to which Nigeria is subject, and it recommended a generous compensation to be paid to him and cessation of his prosecution. That was ignored by the federal government. 4, It is noteworthy that on 29th June 2021, as indicated before, Nnamdi Kanu was arraigned. Well, you can say produced in court, albeit secretly, through the back door and presented before Honorable Justice Binta Morizala Nyako, who was aware that Nnamdi Kanu had cancelled a record. The prosecution was aware Nnamdi Kanu had cancelled a record, not us, his former lawyers. And the DSS was aware of the information of his cancelled record. Everything was on file. Yet, Nnamdi Kanu, or the court, conducted hearing over the head of Nnamdi Kanu and remanded him to DSS custody without notice to his counsel, not to talk of presence of his counsel. This is a flagrant violation of Section 36 of the Nigerian Constitution. 5. When you fast forward to October 2022, when the Court of Appeal discharged Nnamdi Kanu, there was also a judgment issuing from the Federal High Court sitting in Umuahia, which had declared his rendition from Kenya as unconstitutional. It didn't stop there. It went as far as declaring his continued detention in Abuja as unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional. Let me help you, in understanding the complexity of this. It should have been very straightforward. But just remember, Nigeria is a lawless country, led by a bunch of criminals who have a lot to hide from you. According to the fearful Boko Haram's government, Nnamdi Kanu is a terrorist because he has a tool that is so powerful, more powerful than their own weaponry of war. Talking of fighter jets, bombs, APC, armored personnel carriers, including hundreds of thousands of soldiers at their own disposal. Nnamdi Kanu has one tool, and that is the truth, via a platform called Radio Biafra. And according to them, the tool in the hands of Nnamdi Kanu is so powerful enough that it can break Nigeria, and in their own statements, it can lead to another war. Why should truth lead to war? It simply means that even though they claimed the war was over, the genocidal war of 1967 to 1970, but it's obvious that it's never over. Majority of those who participated in that war, in that genocide, some of them are still alive, and they are still fighting the war in their own heads. And that is why the conversation around referendum sounds like war to them. Referendum, where people can decide if they still want to be part of this contraption or not. It's a democratic process. It's a democratic experience. And preaching to the people why it is very much important to have a say in deciding if you want to still be part and parcel of this contraption or not is considered warlike to these warmongers, these genocidists that have been paraded as heroes in that contraption. Nigeria is owing Nnamdi Kanu over 1 billion naira in court judgment. Not that they are going to obey any of it. International courts, different courts, has ruled that the extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu violates international treaty. Treaties that Nigeria is part and parcel of, that they have no regard for. They do not have any regard for their own courts. And this is the problem. We also know that if Nnamdi Kanu wasn't an Igbo, if he was maybe an Hausa or a Yoruba, there is a chance that Nnamdi Kanu will be walking free today. There is a chance. And this is where the supposed Igbo elite also comes into play. None of this that is happening to Nnamdi Kanu could be happening if the Igbo elite, the Igbo political class, if they are not in the know, if they are not in on it as well. Some call them cowards. Well, maybe they are cowards, but they are worse than cowards. Majority of them are what you can describe as the real bastards of that Igbo flock. Very selfish. I know majority of these criminals from all tribes in Nigeria are very selfish, no doubt. But the selfishness of the Igbo political class is top notch. They are afraid of a man that will remind their people why and what Nigeria did to them and why Nigeria is still profiling them in this day and time. Why that we grew up knowing what they call the Wazobia, the three biggest ethnic groups in Nigeria, the Hausas, the Yorubas, and the Igbos, Wazobia. Only for some section of the country to believe confidently and openly be saying that the third biggest ethnic nationality in that contraption cannot be trusted with power and they will never be in charge of that country. But they must be part of the country, whether they like it or not. You will see the Yoruba mofos. You will see the Hausa Fulani terrorists. They will be telling you, Igbo will never lead Nigeria. But when we were growing up, what we were taught was that we had three major ethnic nationalities in that contraption, which means you have three major ethnic nationalities with the same stake, supposedly, in this republic. That's how it should be. If you have a country that parades over 250 different tribes, ethnic nationalities, right? That simply means that they all have a stake. They must all have equal stake in this arrangement, Abi. You have the Hausas, you have the Yorubas, you have the Igbos. So they must all have the equal stake in this. But they will boldly tell you, the Igbos will never lead Nigeria. The Igbos cannot be trusted. So if they cannot be trusted to lead Nigeria or to have equal stake in this contraption, why then are you keeping them? Somebody is reminding them, even those who prefer to remain quiet, because they believe that the Igbos should be broken after the genocidal war. The Igbos were never supposed to be heard of again. The attention, if those of you who kind of read if you take your time and read this, Blood on the Niger by Emma Okocha, go and read it and read about Muritala. Go and read about Adekunle Fajui. Their disgust, their hatred towards the Igbos and what they had in mind, that they actually wanted to exterminate them, so that never again would the Igbos have the number or the strength or even the audacity to dare say they want to leave Nigeria. Many historians who have written different history to glorify the murderers, to glorify the genocidists, they've written and said that the Nigerian genocidal war was started by the Igbos, which is not true. The first shot of war was fired from Benue into the eastern part of Nigeria when the people were still trying to escape back to their regions. That's the real history. There was nowhere that the Igbos actually fired the first shot at Nigeria to start a war. No. Ojukwu went back from Aburi. He went back to the eastern part of Nigeria, celebrating, partying, that they had an agreement. There will never be any fight. There will never be any war in this regard. In fact, we are not breaking away, but we are going to actually be on our own, and we won't have to worry. Only for Gowon to walk back on that. Then their historians continue to try to paint them this. Now, if you feel like the Igbos should not be part of this contraption, the easiest thing to do is to what? It's not to criminalize the idea of referendum. No. Like I said, majority of these self-hating Igbos, political class, who are eyeing whatever is given to them. They are comfortable. They are comfortable being given Senate president, comfortable being given deputy speaker, deputy this or deputy that, minister this, ambassador that. They are fine with that. In a republic where they were supposed to be equal stakeholders. Those who destroyed Nigeria in the last 64 years of that contraption's history, 64 years, the northern part of Nigeria, they have ruled Nigeria for about how many years? 47 to 48 years. And yes, of course, the Western Nigeria, the Niger Delta, as you can possibly put it, and share the rest. And the country these people ruled or ruined is where all of us are struggling to survive in today. But guess the people that are supposed to be building bridges? The Igbos. The Igbos have to build bridges. They are the ones that must convince others that they are good. They are good to be in charge of that contraption. A murderous, genocidist, Fulani terrorist doesn't have to convince anybody. An earth-licking, duplicitous Yoruba criminal politician doesn't have to convince anybody. Since in their own minds, they have one common enemy, the Igbos. Keep them away from power, and we can keep it between ourselves. So they are raising generations of Igbos that will never possibly live like their own parents. They won't live like their own ancestors. So the point I'm trying to make here is this. I'm a Yoruba man, right? And no matter what I say about that contraption, I will never face the same treatment that they are getting at Nnamdi Kanu today. No. I will never be treated like a second-class citizen in that place. Or you have a place that was supposed to be like, oh, we all have, all of us must have equal stake. We are all stakeholders here, so we must have equal stake. Nobody should be setting the rules for another. If you set any rule, that means you also must follow the same rules. So it is only the Igbos that must come and they must build bridges. They must come and convince Yorubas. They must convince the Northerners. They must convince this and that. What the heck? Why not just let them go? So every now and then, the truth which riled them up, the truth of Nnamdi Kanu, the fire-blazing truth of his, that even some of his own kinsmen, Igbos, are not comfortable with. Because some of them have settled for the second place. They are fine. They will tell you, I am okay. I'm a businessman. It doesn't concern me. That's what a foolish person will say. And take a look at that contraption today. Those who have no idea of building economy, they are the ones in government. And those of you who are running businesses, you are the victims of their policies today. Because you are comfortable. Me, I'm a businessman. I'm not interested in this and that. Because you have this defeatist mentality that the place they want you to be. Don't be ambitious. You are an Igbo person. You must not be ambitious. Nnamdi Kanu chose otherwise. That Igbo, you must be ambitious. It's either you are given your place in this contraption or you leave. And they don't want that. They don't want that. They said he's a troublemaker. A gentle Igbo, unambitious Igbo man. Is a typical Nigerian. That is what they want. Sit down there, he sits. Stand up, stand up. Yeah, take that money, go and spend it. Thank you very much. And he becomes so loud and lousy. Because to him, I'm an Igbo man, I have money, I'm okay, I'm this and that, I'm not ambitious, I don't have anything with politics, I'm not interested in all of this, I'm okay like this. And he doesn't know that one single policy of any lunatic can kick him out of business, destroy his entire life, take everything away from him. This is the offense of Nnamdi Kanu. This is why Nigeria spent over $2 $2.4 million in lobbying the American lobbyists to help them lobby the American Congress in order to help them sort of proscribe the IPOB. They failed. Fulani terrorists are slaughtering people. They are the fourth deadliest terrorist group in the whole world. There is a record for that. But Nigerian government is shielding them while they are in America, paying over $2.4 million, lobbying the congressmen in America to help them put the name of IPOB in the names of terrorists, world terrorists. Why the real terrorists that are beheading people, slaughtering people, sending people, millions of people into the IDP camps, you know, destroying villages, are never proscribed. This is Nigeria. And today, if you are a lawyer or a student lawyer, I'll be a law student, can you please come out and please take this offer? There is ₦1 million for grab. ₦1 million to show to us any precedents of where a court ruled, acquitted, and discharged someone. And then they had to file a stay of execution. A stay of execution of that court's judgment. If you can, show us, please take the offer. Nigeria is a lawless place. They have fed you with so much propaganda, hatred. And you know what they say? That those who fail to learn from history, they are bound to repeat it. Nigeria is currently on edge right now. Nigeria is more divided than ever. The level of pronounced hatred that APC have kind of like planted in the system has never been seen before. The hatred towards one another. We have never seen anything like this before. 9 years of APC, Nigeria is more divided, more poorer, more terrorized than ever. Where do you think that's going to end? Where do you think this is headed? I may not have the right answer, but I just know that it's not going to end well. It won't. So we hope that common sense will prevail and innocent man will be let go. But since Nigeria is a place where the victims are always going to be blamed anyway, the oppressors, they hit gold in that contraption where they can get away with just anything and everything. You know? Nnamdi Kanu committed no crime. And if he did commit any crime, the right thing to do is to present the evidence. And you don't do that by also committing an illegality, kidnapping someone, violating international treaties, and then believing that nothing will happen because you are almost a pariah state, a lawless country that is now being led by a drug dealer. Do you think the world doesn't know? The world does know. You know? And it is always turn by turn Nigeria Limited anyway. As they say, injustice to one is injustice said to all. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Denial of justice anywhere is the same as injustice anywhere. Or should we say injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere too, or everywhere. So if they have any evidence against him, it is ideal for them to not be running away from their own courts. Now, some people are making so much money for keeping him. They are keeping Nnamdi Kanu, spending 500 million naira, taking him to court. Every time they say, oh, he's going to court, so that they can adjourn it again, 500 million naira. Some of these guys...
The Bayuna Nugonian, one night in discussion session. All the time, and they spend the 500 million. Namaz Nnamdi Kanu na eje court. Ọ kunu na afia. Onye court nyegoro da si release ya. Ife na akwụkwọ ndị Igbo na akwa ndị Igbo ka eji na mkpọrọ. Akwa ndị Igbo ka eji nụ. Ma ewu ma ọkụkọ mara na ndị Igbo ka eji. Ma napụnụ oge ugbu a. ka efu nwere ikwu gbasịta maka ya bụ ife ndị unu n'iru akwụkwọ anyị wetara na Eastern News 24. Gwa your own reaction antụsa ya bụ ozi kụrụta ụmụnne anyị dị n'ebe dị iche iche aka dịka si na wetara unu ya n'iru akwụkwọ na Eastern News 24. ngwanụ ka emesịa na ụmụ Igbo.